Hello everyone, it is me again, Leroy575. I know that it has been like a full 10 months, at least for when I'm recording this, since my last video. So yeah, sorry for taking this long. Now, I actually had at some point given up on making this video because I'm still a student, which means I have quite limited time to work on these gloves, and this project again proved a lot harder than I had originally expected, and it is just costing me way too much time to figure out. And of course, when I finally get everything pieced together and finally making it semi-functional, Lucas had once again beaten me at releasing his video. Truth be said, it is a little bit frustrating for me, and I thought that no one would need this video anymore. However, some of you guys still ask for the update, so I decided to carry on and make this video. To them, I want to say thank you, because you make my efforts feel worth it. So yeah, I hope that this video is going to be useful for you guys. If you haven't already built the version 3 glove and want a little bit more detailed information, I will highly recommend you to go back to my last video and watch through the first few steps, because they are almost identical between these two versions. If you have built the version 3 glove or just want to speed through the first few basic steps, don't worry, I will still give a quick summary on what you are supposed to do here. First, we need to go to Lucas's Lucid VR Budget Haptic Gloves website. Go to Resources, click the link under Arduino/ESP32 firmware and STL files for 3D printing, then press the green code button and download the zip file. If you need to purchase the electronic parts but don't know where to find them, go back to Resources, click the link under Parts List, then click Prototype 4. Here, Lucas has conveniently given us all the Amazon links for the parts you will need. In case you don't know, you can choose between the WL and green pot potentiometers and the MS90S and SG90 motors. I will personally suggest you to buy the green pot potentiometers because they are smaller and might be a tiny bit lighter, and MSG90S motors. But if you just want to use the leftover parts from your version 3 glove, you can just use the WL potentiometers. Just remember that when you are going to print out the parts, you need to choose the WR parts, not the green pots ones. Okay, now that is out of the way, let us start printing the parts. Go to your default download folder and unzip the Lucid Gloves main.zip file that you have just downloaded and move the file to whichever folder that you want. Then we can go back to the Lucid VR website's Resources and click the link under Arduino/ESP32 firmware and STL files for 3D printing again. Scroll down to Hardware and you can see all the parts and its requirements that you need to print out. Of course, if you are new to 3D printing or just don't know what your settings your printer should be on, just click Printing Guide. Under Hardware, then click Prototype 4/4.1, and you will have all the information that you will need. First, we will need to print out 5 of the haptic spool Proto 4.1 part and 5 green pot slide holder Proto 4.1 part, both located in the Prototype 4.1 folder. Be careful though, because there are also a haptic spool part and green pot slide holder part in the Prototype 4 folder, and they may be a little outdated. Now we will have to switch back to the Prototype 4 folder to print out 5 tensioner green pot parts, 5 spool cover open parts, one of either the rigid mount left hand or rigid mount right hand for whichever hand you are making, and one Quest 2 mount slider if you are using the Quest 2, or you'll have to switch back to the 4.1 folder to get the Vive 3.0 mount slider version 1.2. If you are not reusing the end caps and guide notes from the version 3 glove, You'll also have to print out 5 of the prototype 4 end cap from the prototype 4 folder. And don't forget, you will still need to rescale it for your fingers. And about 9 guide node upgrade parts in the prototype 4.1 folder. You can print out more of them, but this is according to Lucas's 2 per finger, 1 per thumb number. Okay, now we can start testing the firmware while the prints are getting printed out. But before we can do that, we still need to use a breadboard and connect the wires. So Lucas did give a diagram for the version 4 gloves wiring, which you can find again under Resources, Parts List, scroll down to Wiring and click Prototype 4. Although it is pretty clean and understandable, when I was reading it, I still get confused about the wiring for the optional square because the calibration button is required and yet connected to them. So here I will show a drawing of my own crude wire diagram, which I hope can be a little bit more straightforward for you guys.
What up, guys? It is Lifehack time with Leroy again. Yay! Let us hop straight into it, shall we? So first, this is my version 4 glove, left glove, really nice. This is the version 3 old and broken right glove. The reason it is broken is because of the strings inside the potentiometers. Some of them are stuck and I'm just lazy to fix it. And it is fixable, but I don't want to fix it. The main reason it is here is for comparison purposes, so yeah, bear that in mind. So let us hop into the Lifehack parts directly, right? The first part that needs life hacking is obviously the potentiometer parts assembly, the potentiometer assembly, right? This version, the version 4.1 version and the version 3 version is actually not that different. So if you want a complete demonstration of me building this from top to bottom, you can go back and watch my last video since I actually built this from top to bottom, which is kind of ridiculous if you ask me. Alright, so yeah. Even if I have that, I'm going to still give out a vocalized explanation for a few of my life hacks. So first, my prints are really tough. Not tough, my prints are really rough. My prints are so rough, in fact, that normally if you assemble it, it will not be able to turn, right? That is because of this beauty. This is the Da Vinci print. The Da Vinci? Yeah, I think it's a Da Vinci XYZ printer, right? So it might be able to print out pretty good models, but it's really not the best for printing out mechanical parts. So if you want to buy it, don't. Just it may be cheap, but don't be tempted, right? Buy something that is actually good. So anyways, this part is really tough, really rough. If your parts are not rough and everything just fits in really good, snaps in with a click like Lucas's, great for you. But anyways, if it had any like rough parts, this is where this life hack may be useful. So first, you might be able to sand the thing, like completely sand it out. If it is just really small, really tiny, you can do that method. And if it's like on a not really awkward plane where you can like sand it out pretty easily. However, if it's like hard to remove, you can also use fire. I mean, actually it means like using heat to melt the plastic and remold it. For example, if my hand is a 3D print and there is this part that I don't want, I can heat it up with the lighter or even the hot glue gun, heat it up and then use my fingernail, or if you're like afraid of the hot heat, or if it's really hot, you can use a plastic or metal bit to smooth the whole thing out. It will work somewhat, alright? It's not gonna be the best solution, but it will be way better than if you not do it, alright? This is where I will again greatly praise the ability of the hot glue gun, alright? The hot glue gun is not only good at gluing stuff up, it is because the heat from the tip is relatively gentle and yet still able to soften up the plastic of the 3D prints, at least for my 3D prints. Therefore, it proves really useful in remolding everything, right? So yeah. of course, you can still use the solder iron. Like, I actually use a solder iron. It's not still used. I mean, what am I talking about? I used the solder iron to smooth out a few parts before. It is really effective and really fast. However, the problem is when you mess up, you really just mess up. It is way too hot and it just changes the plane really fast. So you need to be aware of that if you're using it. You can use it, but I would still suggest you to use a gentler solution, which is the hot glue gun. All right. The second tip is the placement of my motors and potentiometers assembly things. All right. As you can see, it is placed like this, like motor, and then motor on this side, right? It is definitely not necessary. The only reason I do this is because in his last video, in Lucas's last video, he placed it like he placed his motor assembly like this. That is why I do it like this. But it is definitely not necessary, so you can put it whatever way you like. Just that this is how I built mine, right? All right, the third and the most useful tip, at least in my opinion, is end caps. So end caps are actually hard to get to the right size. If it's too big, it's gonna be really hard to it's gonna be useless because it's gonna be too loose. If it's too small, it's gonna be really uncomfortable to fit onto the finger. That is where this life hack comes into play. So you have an end cap, for example this one, and it's too small. It doesn't fit your finger. It fits in your finger, but it just feels really uncomfortable. Now, all you need to do is use the God tool, the hot glue gun. Put the heat it up, alright? Of course, heat it up, and then put the iron tip into here and just turn a few circles and make sure you soften the plastic a little bit. Then put on your glove and put your gloved finger right into this. So if it is too small, it will like slowly turn into the shape of your, just morph into the shape of your finger. That is just really nice. So that is what happened to my left hand's pinky finger. It used to be really small, like it feels really uncomfortable. But after I do this method, it now fits like comfortably on my pinky finger. That is a really useful tip, at least for me. That is awesome when I've noticed this, right? However, if it's too large, my parts are all too small, so I'm not really sure this will work. But normally, under the same premise, if you just soften out the plastic a bit and you just push it in on your finger, it should theoretically also work the other way. So if it's too big, if you can just squeeze it in to make it fit your finger again, and then voila, you got a good, nice and fit end cap, right? And if your glove is thick, I will also suggest you to just actually add a little bit of hot glue inside here while you're putting it on, because it will not only just stick it on to your finger really nice, it can keep the part soft for a longer time to make sure it shifts into the form you like. However, if your gloves are really thin, don't do this because you actually might hurt yourself and it's gonna be on your hand. It's gonna be hard to remove, all right? So do this at your own risk. That is literally that, all right? And then the last suggestion I'm going to give you guys, the last life hack, is about the wire connections, all right? The wirings. So from my last glove, as you can see, is just soldered directly onto the ESP32 and then hot glued and secured again, right? Reinforced. Even though this is rather secure, it's pretty good. It is still pretty annoying. The reason for that is because, like this one, when I remove it, I don't know if you can see this, but there are residue on these pins, and it will be like hard to solder new parts onto the pins because there are already residue on it, and it will increase the possibility of it not working because there are just residue. Right? That is why I will suggest you guys to use something like this board. And this board is like is some sort of like a all-you-can-make breadboard, sorta. Just do-it-yourself breadboard. I think that is more like it, right? Every one single of these dots are not connected yet. However, you can put a copper wire on this and solder the wire onto, for example, these 4 pins, like these 4 holes, and connect the wire directly to one of the pins. Now anything that is connected to these four holes are now directly connected to the pin. Of course, there's 2 sides, so what happened is behind this board, which I sadly couldn't show you guys, but basically that is how it works. And as for the wiring, if you followed my crude diagram, I think everything would work out pretty okay. Just remember to color coordinate your wires, just to make sure what you know what you're doing, and you can actually use these holes. You can use these holes inside the assembly. I really have no idea. I forgot the name for these. You can use these holes to manage your wiring, to make it look a little bit more manageable. Not that this is anyway managed, but it looks better if you use these holes, right? It's just a nice little suggestion. And of course, this button is actually the calibration button, because sadly I didn't know that you can use the boot button as the calibration button before. But yeah, you can just use this, alright? Just change the pin number to 0 and the code, everything will be nice, alright? So yeah, that will be basically it. I hope what I've said here are helpful, and a few of these life hacks can actually prove useful to you guys. Let's go to the next part, alright?
Congratulations! If you have done the wiring and assembly of the parts, I would say that you have already done 80% of what you're supposed to do here. Now, all we need is actually testing the firmware. Download the Arduino IDE if you haven't done so already, and install the CP210x Driver. I actually don't know what this do, and I haven't installed this before Lucas posts out his video, but I might have accidentally installed something similar while I was trying to make things work, but now we know that it is needed, so yeah, we should just go on and install it. Now, after you have installed both of them, you can go back and open the Lucid Gloves main folder, go to Firmware, main.ino file, to finally start configuring the firmware. Yay! If you're using the ESP32, don't forget that you will also need to paste in the ESP stable release link in the description into File, Preference, then Additional Boards URLs. If you haven't done it before, of course. Oh yeah, if there already is something in the Additional Boards URLs, all you need to do is just add a comma and paste it in anyways. Now, just go to Tools, Boards Manager, and search for ESP32 and install it. Then go back to Tools, Manage Libraries, and search and install the ESP32 Servo library. I actually figured out that I need this by myself, which made me feel pretty good back then. Now, all we need to do is configure the code. By the way, don't forget you will need to make sure which port your board is connected to, and select your port under Tools and Port. As you can see, we don't have to configure the max analog to 4095 this time, which is pretty sweet. However, we still have a few things to go through. One of the first things we can configure is the communications. But we should only change it from COM serial to COM BT serial, which allows the ESP32 to connect to your PC via Bluetooth later, or you can't test your glove. The other things are rather self-explanatory. A lot of them are just to invert the output values for when the outputs are inverted than what you want. These work for potentiometers, buttons, joystick X and joystick Y, etc. The things that we really need to change are using Caleb pin to true and using force feedback to true. Now, if you're going to use the boot button on your ESP32 as the calibration button, which I will recommend if you're not adding an additional calibration button, you can scroll down to pin calib and change it to 0. After that, upload everything onto your ESP32 and you can test it.
Okay, now we have done that, we can actually start testing. So upload the thing to your board, make sure the port is on this, make sure it is connecting nicely. And comms is not BT, just normal comm, alright, comm serial, or it will not work, you cannot test it. So now this thing where we can test here is test if the potentiometer's flexion calculates your finger's flexions perfectly, alright? So what we do here is open tools and get to serial monitor. So as you can see, the numbers are coming out really slowly, even though we are on everything is correct. 115200 baud is absolutely correct. This caused me a few problems because I used to have to go back and turn off the using servo settings every single time because I didn't know that you can just press enter. So basically, yeah, just press enter, everything works out. So how it calculates your fingers flexions is when you make a fist, the numbers are way larger, and when you open your palm, as you can see, the numbers are way smaller. It doesn't really matter if it's completely 0 or 4095 because I think there is dynamic scaling for this, so you don't need to worry a lot of everything. So there is A, B, C, D, E, F, G. I mean, everyone is basically assigned for something. So a pinky is, I forgot which one's which, but they're the controller, if you're wondering, pressing down you'll have a English number, I'm pretty sure. Pressing down it, you will have a H. When I list it, you will now have the H number, alright? And right is 4095, if I remember correctly. Let's check. So right is 4095, left is 0, up is 4095, down is 0. Yep, I think so. Yep. Yeah, that's basically it. I hope this is useful. However, we still need to test out the motors, which is going to require using Steam, and you need to use open gloves and launch it and everything. Now, testing the motors, what you need to do is basically make sure that enable the left hand, right, and the feedback enabled. Communication method, I used Bluetooth serial because it used to be, but now it is USB, right? Now it's port 7. Okay, I only allowed the left hand, so there's no need to worry. Device emulation, basically keep it on knuckles, nothing changed. Encoding protocol, the same. Position settings, you used to need to like hand set this, which takes a lot of time. But now all you need to do is press the button, the calibration button, which really saves a lot of time. Alright, so basically save. I'm not gonna save because I have done this before. And go to settings, go to functions, and then you can try out this is left hand, so you can try out the servos, which is the motors. Now this also helps when you're adding the fin onto your glove. This is absolutely necessary. So retracted means it tightens things, right? So extended, it means it loosens. So when it retracts, your hands should not be able to close. When it extends, you should be able to move your hand. I'm pretty sure that is it. I got this mixed up quite a lot of times, and it cost me a lot of time because I need to completely reinstall everything. And when I mean completely, I mean completely reinstall anything because mine doesn't even have the holder, so I need to like peel the whole motor off. So yeah, I hope that this is useful. Just don't get it messed up, alright?
Well, this is the end of the video. I know that there are quite a few more things that I haven't gone through completely, such as modding and actually testing the gloves in game. This is mainly because that my right glove keeps on breaking while I was testing it. For some reason unknown to me, I have to use both gloves to play the game and can't just use the right controller with my left glove even after I set the setting to only use the left glove. Anyhow, I still hope that this video is useful to you guys in building your own cheap VR gloves. Like I said last time, if you like my video, go subscribe to Lucas VRTech. He is an awesome person to give out all of these files for free, and I believe it is people like him who can advance the VR community. Thank you for your watching. And if you want to see me do more of these tutorial-ish videos, please comment below. I can't promise that I will make whatever you ask because I'm just a smooth-brained monkey, and I'm going to be a lot busier from now on. Well, I hope that I will see you guys soon. Goodbye.